this fight, you know what I'm saying? Do you think size could be a difference maker, or what do you like about each fighter that can kind of like propel them in this fight?
That's a good question. I'll start with Loma. I believe, and to answer your question, yes, I do think the physical difference between the two, right? Size will matter in this fight, especially if given Devin Haney's style, which I'll get into in a moment. But if we start with Loma, I believe Loma's best attribute by far is his skill set, his footwork, right? Being able to throw punches in from different angles, right? His ability to move in the inside, fighting forward as opposed to backwards. We see that when he fights backwards, he kind of, he doesn't really do too well, right? But when he's fighting forward and countering and throwing from different angles, that's when he's most successful, right? Also, I would say going to Devin Haney's side, what he does really well is Devin Haney's jab is exceptional. Probably one of the best jabs in boxing. Underrated, I would say. He throws it at a certain range. He's pretty rangy with it, and he throws it in volume, which is pretty good, right? Also, I would probably say the tactics he used, right, in the sense of you've seen a couple of his fight, even his Cambosa's fight, even with Linares, like when he feels like a fighter with some level of punching power or aggressiveness gets too close, he'll hug him up, right, and kind of like reset them and don't let them kind of get their footing, right? Now, the negatives from both fighters, as I mentioned with Loma, is, Loma, him fighting on the back foot, but more so he starts too slow. And then when it comes to Devin Haney, because Devin Haney's a rangy fighter, right? He's never fought a fighter like Loma before, right? That fights through angles, right? So what are you going to do when a fighter's coming forward and when you're throwing the jab and they're countering and you don't have an opportunity to really clinch, right? Or you're going to clinch and you're getting clipped in the process, right? So that's my answer to your question. How about you?
Yeah. So definitely, I echo the sentiment about the jab, right? I think Devin Haney's jab is probably somewhere between top 5 and top 7 in boxing. I really love his jab. He does, like you said, he's rangy. He's good at just judging that range and keeping you at bay. And I really think with Loma's reach is probably like what, 67 inches, 66 inches or something like that, arm reach, versus Devin, who I'm sure is closer to maybe like 71, 72.
Right.
So I can see Devin, controlling range with that. But there's not a lot of pop behind those punches, right? So, and Loma, so will he take one to give one?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And then for Loma, I do like the footwork in this instance. I think Devin fights a lot of like not stationary targets, but people who aren't too elusive,
Right.
and they're kind of there to be tagged with that jab all night. But now
Right.
when Loma is, L stepping, or just getting in on the inside with those combinations, you know what I'm saying, different angles as you mentioned. How does Devin react to that? I'm someone who I don't really question Devin's chin because he hasn't really given me a real reason to. We've seen him rocked, right?
Right.
But he didn't go down. But outside of that fight, we haven't really seen him hurt. You know what I'm saying? Even though every time he fought since that, every time Devin gets hit, they're like, whoa, he got hit hard. He got hit hard. And I'm like, nothing even happened. You know what I'm saying? But in this fight, I do think he's gonna be hit hard.
Yeah.
And I think people underestimate Loma's power because Loma stops dudes. You know what I'm saying? And when
Absolutely.
you look at him, he's so small and his fist looks small. You're like, what? But he stops dudes. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
He almost stumbled Ortiz. I think it was
Yeah.
like the third round.
Yeah, a couple of times Ortiz knees kind of buckle. I'm
Yeah,
like,
he
whoa, whoa,
buckled. Like
whoa, whoa.
counter, he kind of like I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
he can hit.
So I think the punching power is in his favor opposed to the reach is in Haney's favor. But is that reach enough for Loma just to say, all right, I'm gonna stay out here? And I don't want to say he sounds desperate, but I think he knows what's on the line. He said a couple of times, this is my last opportunity to be undisputed. You know what I'm saying? So let's get into it. Who do you think's gonna win that fight?
If I had to choose, I'm probably going with Loma.
Loma?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Loma. I think it's gonna go decision. Probably going Loma.
So I'm like really torn on this one. I'll be honest with you. This is one of the hardest picks for me in boxing right now. for a long time. I've thought about this fight for years before it came to fruition.
Mhm.
But I've kind of always leaned Devin the slightest of margins. I just think it's going to be a chess match, and I think the reach, he'll touch Loma enough to pull out maybe a split decision victory.
Yeah.
But when I tell you, like, if you make a good point to me right now, I might change my mind. Like, that's how close it is. You know what I'm saying? If that person walks up and say, "Yo, but this," I might be like, you know what, you're right, Loma. You know what I'm saying? It's that close. This is probably, I'm usually pretty definitive in my answers, but this one has like really bothered me for some time. It's probably my hardest decision in boxing, this fight right here. Even if the fight
Mhm.
ends up being one-sided, which I doubt it will be, but
Yeah.
the way it's playing in my mind, it's so hard for me to pick. But I'm gonna lean with Devin Haney. I'm gonna say in a split decision victory.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't even blame you, honestly. It's a really close fight. Like Loma, for me, I think he wins by decision. I want to say split, but with these judges, I may feel like it should go split, but even if it played out that way, judges probably are unanimous, right? It really depends. But I to kind of go with what you're saying, I'm on Loma side split versus with you, Devin Haney split. But I'm in the same boat as you. Like last week, I was thinking Devin Haney was going to win, right? But
Yeah,
then I'm like, man, as I get close to the press conference, I'm like, man, it's more so me kind of talking myself into kind of being on one side and kind of staying on that side. But then again, next week I may end up changing my mind to Devin Haney, right? Because I think it's who can impose their will more, whether or not Devin Haney can impose his physical size advantage over Loma for the duration of the fight and press the action forward for majority of the time, or if Loma's going to figure him out and when he's trying to go for clinches, figure him out and throw like how Benavidez was doing to Caleb Plant and go from different angles and pop him and press the action, right?
yeah,
And either those situations are, can be equally, likely to happen, right? So
yeah. So I feel like if Devin wins, right, we want Devin versus the winner of Tank Ryan. I
right.
would believe. But if Loma win, is it the same hype there to see him fight the winner of that fight?
No,
No.
absolutely not.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Okay.
I think it's more hype with Devin Haney fighting Tank because of their history, especially with the sparring matches that they've had in the past, right?
Yeah.
Where you have AB coming from the woodworks talking on it. You have the Twitter exchanges between the two fighters, right? So clearly there's a form of dislike there. I'm not
Mhm.
sure how deep it is, but I think there's more history. It calls for just a better story, and I think it will just be kind of a better match, right? They're both young. Of course, Tank Davis is older than Devin Haney. As opposed to Loma, he's getting older, right? I think if he somehow beats Devin Haney, people will put him on a pedestal, of course. But if he loses to Tank, then it's like, people, you're gonna start hearing whispers of, oh man, Tank should have fought him when Loma was chasing him the first time,
At
right?
130. Yeah.
Right. And you're gonna start getting these relics of the past kind of chiming in, but more so you'll see that people will probably start making excuses for Lone, saying, oh, he's older, he's not the
Mhm.
same, he said that, this is his last shot, so I just think overall it would sell more if Devin Haney was to win and fight Tank as opposed to Loma.
And maybe random question, right? Maybe the most odd situation out of all possibilities, right?
I already
What
know
if
what
we
you're
get Loma versus Ryan Garcia? What if
about
they
to say.
both win? We get Loma versus Ryan Garcia.
Nah, I'm not gonna lie. If you get Loma versus Brian Garcia, which is probably the unlikely scenario, right? Because based off of my prediction, right, I think Loma wins. So you'll probably have in scenario A, Loma versus Tank because he beats Devin Haney. Scenario B, Devin Haney versus Tank, right? And then scenario C, you have Loma versus Ryan Garcia, and then probably scenario D is probably Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia, right? In my case, I know you is probably like flipped, out of order in that case, but nevertheless, I don't see Ryan Garcia getting past Tank, right? That's where we're at right now, and I don't think I'll watch the fight. Don't get me wrong, right?
Yeah.
Because if he beats Tank, it's like, oh my God, like, yo, that's somewhat of an upset,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't be as excited if
Yeah,
I
yeah,
would
yeah.
rather see Tank versus Haney, if I'm being honest.
When we get closer to the fight, we're gonna revisit this, and we're gonna probably say, do a deep dive, and there's a more in depth with the breakdown. I got
Right.
to go into the lab again, and I got to I got to go rewatch some fights and see, tendencies and stuff like that. But as of right now, you got Loma, I got Devin. I think
Mhm.
it's gonna be a great fight. I really can't wait to see it, especially for 59.99. I think more people around boxing need to do that, because I heard Tank and Ryan is coming in at 84.99.
What?
Dang, I'm gonna have to not pay rent that month. Let me write this down. I'm gonna have to. Jesus,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh man, that's rough, because it's like one of those things. Like, yeah, you can pay it, but come on. Even if you got it, it's still a bill, right? It's like something that you kind of go without. I know that there are streaming services, but they tend to be unreliable. So, oh man, but
Yeah.
we'll see, we'll see. But viewers, definitely, like, comment, subscribe, drop in the comments exactly who you think will win that fight, how you felt about the press conference, and who would you like to see, in the future, based off the outcome of the fight. So
Exactly. Exactly. All right, man. 2 cents short of a dollar. We'll be back again. We appreciate you all.